Well, it's 12:30, and we got some nice new gentlemen to welcome to learn with us. So it should be Scott and Harm. Are you there?
Good afternoon, Martin. Yes, I'm here.
Yes.
Fabian.
Good afternoon. This is Scott.
This is Scott. That is like you're in the center of everything, right? So what about you, Harm? Are you also here?
Yeah, I'm here also. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. If you click on the webcam on the top next to the microphone,
now
then
you can see me, I think.
Oh, you are so nice looking, gentlemen. So
Well,
so great
much.
to see you. Yeah. So how is life and where are you located right now?
Life is good. So far, so good. I am currently located, well, I live in Belgium, and as most of people nowadays, I think, working from home since quite some weeks now. So
have you started to feel this anxiety where I want to go out and I want to go and have a beer?
Yeah, I think it's the same for everyone, I guess. But to be honest, it's not too bad. I mean, I cannot complain. We have a big house. I have a big office here. We have a big garden. So even though we were not allowed to go on the street or go to shops or anything, I can still. I think it's more difficult for people who live in another situation or with a big family in a smaller house. So
yeah, sure. And what about you, Scott? Where are you located?
I'm in the United States in the Boston area.
So you're up early today?
Yes.
Who are you?
Can you not see that, Morgan?
Oh yeah, I can see that. Okay, sorry. Yeah. Did you see these? I think it was so funny because I saw all these on cartoons where you see that people dressed up from here, and then with ties and everything like that. Then they sit in the underpants just at the chair.
Yes, the shorts.
That might be the situation with.
I do have long pants on just in case, so that's
just in case.
I'm ready.
Okay. So before we see and hear your presentation, what is TECNAU and what do you do? I know it, but maybe somebody else doesn't know, right?
TECNAU is a provider of feeding and finishing solutions for high-speed digital printers, high-speed inkjet printers, most often these days. We've been around for 30 plus years now, so quite a lot of experience in the industry, partnerships with all the major printer vendors.
Mm-hmm. And how is if we see away from the COVID-19 situation, how is the market developing for you as a company?
Harman, you want to talk about what's
happening? Yeah, I can say. I mean, obviously, we were in that case lucky that we had quite a good order stock actually in the book. So we started the year already quite well. That helps a lot, obviously. But obviously, you see now the last couple of months, you see a slowdown. Decisions are being slightly delayed. On the other hand, to be fair, there was supposed to be a Drupa coming up in June, and typically previously to a big show like that, you see a little bit delayment of decision making anyhow.
So yeah, they want to be sure whether they should buy.
On that anyhow, and we were quite busy doing other things, and that hasn't stopped. And we were lucky enough that, we are a very international organized company with factories in Italy, a factory in Sweden, and a factory in the US. So that helps also to spread the risk, specifically in these kind of situations. So that has been very good for us. And luckily enough, all the factories were able to stay open, and we've obviously taken all the precautions necessary.
Sure.
But we were able to work and to get machines out and definitely get spare parts out when needed. So from that perspective, things have gone on relatively well, considering the circumstances.
And Scott, maybe you can answer this one. I think that especially in America, where you have a lot of the inkjet devices are transactional printing devices, that was an essential business or essential industry in the US. So you have not, from your customers have not been so affected by the coronavirus as maybe the commercial printers, right?
Yeah, no, certainly. The transactional business is continuing as usual. We are still getting business. Our business is down certainly, but still holding on and getting regular transactional business. Certainly, the commercial print side seems to be more affected. Absolutely.
I don't know if you heard the presentation before, but that was Francois Martin from Bobst, and I was just a little bit surprised because yesterday you just mentioned Drupa and Bobst and Xerox. They have just announced yesterday that they are not going to Drupa. That is quite big news, I would say.
It is, and I was a bit surprised, to be honest. I mean, we certainly don't have the plans to stay out. So for us, Drupa is still very much there. And we're
Okay, you have more space now. More space now, right? You can take.
Well, hopefully we get more space and maybe at a slightly lower price. Who knows?
I think that you should call Drupa and say that you take both Xerox and Bob's space and for a low margin, because then it will be even more exciting to go and see all the equipment there, right?
But then we need to fit it up with a lot of equipment also. So.
Yeah, that's
true. I'm
so
sure we can. I mean, we have an extremely wide portfolio, and that's, I think, part of Scott's presentation also today, to show some of the different solutions that are out there for finishing around digital print, and it's quite a lot of different things. So I hope we were able to cover all of that today.
Oh yeah, I think so. I had a conversation with your new CEO, is Filippo?
TECNAU.
Yeah. A couple of weeks ago, over the Skype here, and that was great, because also that we got a chance to talk a little bit about some of the new progress you do on the new equipment. So that is pretty good. But I suggest that we take it away now, and then afterwards, hopefully, some questions, and otherwise, I'm sure I can figure out something to ask you. So your presentation has already been uploaded. So if you look at to your right, it must be there's the slides button. If you click on that one.
I'm not sure I see it.
I can start here. It's just maybe you close there's some dots, and then there's like a menu to the left side of the right side of the screen. You see that? Can you see the little red box with 3 dots?
I see a slides icon, and
you click on that one, and then you can see that the last of the presentations is your presentation. So if you click Start Presentation on that one, you have the presentation online, and you can just talk over it.
Got it.
Good. See, saved by the Americans again, John.
Yeah.
So that is, I will leave the presentation to you and listen to what you're saying, and then I will get back to you when you're finished. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Take it away.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining our session to talk about finishing. Hope this is an informative time for you, and we certainly welcome questions as we go along. I believe that they'll be chatted to us, and we'll certainly cover them as we wind up the presentation. What I'm going to be talking about today, my name is Scott Peterson. I'm Product Marketing Manager here at TECNAU, and I'm joined by Hulleman, who heads up sales for us in Europe, Middle East, Asia, Africa. And I wanted to take you through profiles of some TECNAU customers. I promise not to make this all TECNAU equipment, minuscule details. What I'm hoping to do is to give you an overview of what some TECNAU customers are doing, just to give you some familiarity with the kind of capabilities that are available in the finishing world now, in finishing for high-speed inkjet printers. So let's start walking through it. I'm going to start with, and some of the customers, by the way, are going to be mentioned by name here, as this first one is. Some of them we do not have the liberty to share their name, but I'll still share some of the details of what they're doing. Beck is a customer of ours here in the United States. They are a ballot printer, commercial printer, but very much focused on ballot applications, and some of the unique features, some of the unique requirements of ballot applications are reflected in the description that we have here. So first of all, they're required to do some quite long lengths, so right up to a 30-inch or 750 millimeter plus length for some longer ballots. There are 145 and 200 GSM basis weight, so there's some a little bit heavier than usual paper, though not the heaviest out there, certainly. And they have a scoring requirement. I'm going to be talking as we go on. They have a dynamic perforator with scoring, and we're going to be talking about that in a little more focused detail later on in the presentation. But suffice it to say that there are those capabilities out there to do a scoring right along with a scoring increasing right along with the dynamic perforating. And these guys also have, I'm mostly not focusing on TECNAU products here, but just to quickly mention, they have our Revolution 50, which is our newest high-speed product. So this goes up to the 500 foot per minute speed of the HP page-wide T240. Also allows running of the heavier paper, et cetera. And we'll talk a little bit more detail about kind of the latest generation of cut stack that's out there in the marketplace available for you. And then finally, I'll focus on this slide about the last bullet there, splicing unwinder. Just wanted to make sure you're aware of these kind of capabilities in the marketplace, because they especially become valuable in a kind of environment like Beck has, where they're doing heavier papers, as they say, the 145 and 200 GSM paper. And you can see in the little chart at the bottom why it makes such sense for them to have a splicing unwinder, as run times, for instance, in the 200 GSM paper, the run time for a 50-inch diameter roll is not much more than a half an hour. And if you maybe take 10 to 15 minutes to change a roll, as is frankly pretty typical. Again, we're not talking about just how long it physically takes the operator to do this, but how long the press is down typically for a roll change. So you can see quickly, if you're only running for half an hour or so, and you take that 10 to 15 minutes to change a roll, the productivity benefit by going to a splicing unwinder where you eliminate that downtime for a roll change is major. So let's move on to the next customer here. These guys are another Revolution 50 customer, that this time on the Blue Crest IntelliJet, the Blue Crest's version of the HP press. They again looking for that higher speed operation up to 150 meters per minute. Now these guys do a simple transactional applications, pretty typical 75 to 90 GSM, letter size, slit merged. Nothing very exciting there, but the interesting piece there again is they're operating with that newest generation of higher speed inkjet presses that are out there now. And that's where Revolution 50 and our competition has come out with similar products where folks are looking to be able to accommodate those higher speeds. Now, the speeds we were talking about for the last two customers was again in that 150 meters per minute range. But there are presses, of course, out there that are operating up to 180 meters per minute, and some even more than that. So this generation of finishing is really required to operate at those higher speeds. But it goes beyond that. There's also the media flexibility mentioned here, to be able to run the wide media range. These are not just used for transactional print anymore. These are being used in commercial print environments, et cetera, where the media range demanded is quite wide. As you can see, as light as 40 GSM up to 300 GSM, coated papers as well as uncoated papers. So those kind of requirements for the environment. And you also see things like we're going beyond that to offer a high reliability, Internet of Things compatibility, to be able to do things like get remote access and acquire onboard diagnostics. Again, all about keeping the equipment up and running. Finally, one more Revolution 50 customer here. This is a US book printer with international operations as well, who really focuses on these very short run and even single copy books. And they're looking for something a little bit different because they're looking to form these books, and they require jogging and gluing so that they can not glue. Of course, as you maybe do a lot of perfect binding, you got a final book glue, but what we're talking about here is a glue that allows them to transport the book onto an offline finishing device. So they're looking to jog the book together. They're looking to add those tack glue dots, as you can see in the drawing in the lower left, where the book is held together, not with final sort of binding glue, but just glue to keep the book together during transportation, as I say, to that offline device. This is a plow fold environment that these guys are using here, where they're doing that fold across along the web. and allows them to do multi-up books, take full advantage of the web width possible, but still be highly productive. Another customer to mention here, now starting to focus on a little different area. Yacht is a Swedish direct marketer, does a lot of work for supermarket chains, variable data mailings, newspaper inserts, and these guys operate in a little different way. They operate roll to roll, in this case on a Ricoh Pro VC 60,000. So they operate roll to roll with a dynamic perforator as well to form coupons. You can see on some of the samples there, the coupons that these guys might typically do. And then so they operate roll to roll on the press and then have an offline cut stack system. In this case, their offline cut stack features a long stacker capable of handling sheet lengths up to 700 millimeters plus, so able to handle some quite large inserts, etc. And so that kind of thing is possible as well. I mentioned with Beck earlier, again, the same sort of long stacker. In Beck's case, up to 30 inches plus, so the lengths can be quite long as well with some of these stackers. Typical stackers might be limited to shorter lengths, but there are options for these longer lengths. And in this offline environment, the offline cut stack sort of gives rise to a question that we frequently receive from our customers, which is whether to go inline or offline with finishing. There are certainly, of course, obvious advantages to operating inline, minimizing labor, keeping jobs together, improving that job integrity. There's obvious benefits to operating inline, but inline doesn't make sense for everybody. For many customers, that offline finishing might make the most sense, as it did for Yacht, with roll-to-roll operation on the press, making the press most productive. The roll-to-roll is sort of, roll-to-roll doesn't go down. It keeps your press up and running, keeps that expensive investment in your new high-speed inkjet press operating as efficiently as possible. As soon as paper is broken into sheets, it automatically becomes less reliable, more challenging to handle. You also maximize in an offline environment the productivity of each module. There are speed mismatches. Our line might run at 150 meters per minute, but maybe there's some finishing binding equipment that doesn't run at the same speed. So it can make sense to break apart a line so that each individual module can run at its greatest speed, and you minimize your investment in equipment, because if you have to buy up equipment to meet the speed of the least productive piece of the line, that can really lead to increased investment that you might otherwise be able to avoid. Certainly also, of course, with long lines, you might need to break them apart to isolate those equipment down situations. If a piece of a line goes down, if a piece of a line goes down, all of a sudden the whole line is down. And whereas if you break it apart with offline finishing, you can keep your press up and running if the finishing is offline, or if the press goes down, you can keep the finishing going with maybe some pre-produced work that's already queued up waiting for that line. So, and basically, in summary, a long production line, as it says here, is only as productive as the slowest and least reliable piece of the line. That's really.
Scott, if I may add something to that.
Yeah, please do, Harmjan.
Very, very fair point what you say there on the bottom. Obviously, there's not one size fits all answer. Every customer situation is different here. It's a very interesting question, though, and like you said, the question we often get from customers. And the other thing is also there's not one answer. That what we see quite often is that we finally go for what we call a hybrid solution, in which the customer can actually choose depending on the application, depending on the speed he wants to run, or depending on the timeline pressure that they might have on a certain job, that they either go roll to roll or they have the finishing as well online as offline. So they have both options available. And depending on the job, they can choose to go either roll-to-roll and finish offline, or specific other jobs, more time-critical jobs maybe, they want to go straight into the finishing and finish offline. So once printed, they immediately have their output available. So right. I think that flexibility sometimes at least answers a part of these questions.
That's a very good point, Harmjan. Yes, there are very flexible configurations available that can support both environments at the same time. So I think ultimately at the end of the day, engage your finishing partner, engage your press partner as well, and both will have some views on what might make the most sense for your operation and whether one of these flexible alternatives might be the best solution, et cetera. All right, so moving on. So let's take a look again at some other customers. This one is a Dutch commercial printer, kind of interesting customer. They've been obviously a very tight good Ricoh account, with being beta site for some of Ricoh's newest presses, the VC 60,000, and then the first European beta for the Pro VC 70,000 as well. They are a commercial printer. They do a lot of, they still have an offset capability as well. They'll transition some of their traditional offset to a digital environment, producing B2 sheets for some of their legacy finishing equipment that they still have on hand and still make use of, calendars and posters. So they do a lot of larger format stuff. And they've got a little bit different approach to the large stacker than our previous customers have. They use a pallet stacker. So pallet stackers are available in the marketplace as well to produce an efficient, very tall stack. You can see in the photo on the slide there, a very large stack that again can move to some of that legacy finishing equipment that is maybe accustomed to operating in that kind of environment. A little bit different type of customer here. This one is a direct marketer in the United States, doing in this case the application in question. It can be more traditional direct mail, but also transactional statements. A lot of their work is focused in the more traditional basis weight range, if that's 70 to 90 GSM. But why I particularly wanted to mention them here is to highlight another capability that's available in the finishing world, which is quality monitoring systems. So these guys make use of a quality monitor to look at a number of quality measures. You can see here in the graphic a number of the tests that are available, and this is not at all a complete list, by the way, of the kind of tests that are available. And maybe one thing to focus on here is we're not, these quality monitors don't just look at maybe a traditional print quality, what kind of quality is there a color match, other quality measures of print, but also measuring data integrity and measuring things like, is a number sequence appropriate? Is the first page of a bill going to the same customer that the last page of the bill is supposed to go to? So we can, those kind of sort of other measures of quality are available as well. So that's something that, and it's something that can be very valuable for print for pay customers who want to provide evidence to their customers that they are delivering output as appropriate to the right customers at the right time. Another customer, Liturgical Publications, kind of a very interesting company that produces church bulletins. But the pertinent piece here is they handle the kind of applications like booklets that are stitched and folded. They'll also put in perforated coupons there with a perforator. These guys, again, every customer is different. These guys, in this case, to operate roll to roll on the press, and then they have offline finishing where they'll bring those rolls over, unwind them into a cutter, and then the cutter might feed a folder with a perforator included with it, or might feed into an IBIS smart binder or similar kind of binding devices to produce a final document. So Those kind of capabilities are available as well, where maybe multiple, finishing equipment from multiple vendors is tied together. Certainly, we're all used to those kind of environments and accomplishing those kind of things. Talked about a number of customers using perforators and scoring devices, etc. So I wanted to highlight here a little bit of what's available in dynamic processors. So you can see some typical sorts of applications here of some different perforation patterns that are available, and these are just meant to be not at all a comprehensive picture, but just to represent that any kind of perforation pattern on a page might be possible. And the advantages of going with a processor are listed here in the first couple of bullets of reducing an inventory of pre-perforated forms. Perforations can be therefore done inline, avoiding the use of expensive pre-perforated paper, which can operate at quite a premium of 30% premium or more over standard unfinished papers. You can, and then the whole world again of applications is possible: remit perforations, coupon perforations, etc. This is typically done via 2D data matrix on the page that drives. There's other possibilities as well, where we might focus on a feature of the page or feature other kinds of barcodes, etc. But typically, the 2D data matrix is used, and oftentimes, if 2D is present on the page, to drive inserters, oftentimes that same 2D can be used, so we're not adding necessarily an additional mark on the page to drive the perforator as well. Those perforators, again, can do a lot of other things too, other than standard perforations in each direction. Pin feed punching can be available for those still operating with pin feed, with inserters that require pin feeds potentially. So those pin feeds can be added, and avoiding that pre-conversion process, it's more expensive. Dynamic file hole punch can be added, a 4-hole punch on each page. Scoring and creasing options, as I mentioned earlier, are possible. And this final bullet I want to highlight, most of what we've been talking about so far has been for the web-fed world, for web-fed inkjet presses. But there are solutions out there for sheet-fed inkjet presses as well. So here, the dynamic processors are available for both web-fed and sheet-fed devices. There are cut stack lines also available for the sheet-fed inkjet world, where you might take a large sheet like an A3 sheet or potentially even with a newer product that we're coming out with, a B2 or a B2 plus sheet, and break that up into final page sizes right down to a postcard size. So those kind of things are available these days as well, and might be something you might want to be aware of. Talking again about a couple of in the sheet-fed world, what might be possible. Here you can see a customer that we have in France that is producing school reports on a Xerox Brenva, and now of course replaced by Baltoro, and the same product is available certainly for Baltoro as well. And I should mention it's available also for the Canon I series, or the new Canon VarioPrint IX series. Where you can add this kind of dynamic perforator, dynamic punch, dynamic scoring right in line with these sheet-fed inkjet presses. And you can see that the customer is quite happy with what they've been able to achieve with the solution. Finally, I think this is my last slide here outlining customers. This is I wanted to highlight this one a little bit and make sure you're aware of this, because I think a lot of customers, a lot of folks in the marketplace are not aware of this kind of possibility, where you can buy roll feed for your sheet-fed system. So sheet-fed, all kinds of sheet-fed presses out there have this possibility to add a roll feed, where you go unwinding a large roll of paper, just as for a continuous inkjet press, unwinding that roll of paper into a cutter, which cuts it into individual sheets and then feeds that into the inkjet press. Why would you do that? Well, the reason why you do that most powerfully is because if you're doing the kind of things like this D&L Press is doing here, where they weren't running commodity sheets. If you're running an A4 sheet through your press all day, the advantages to going to a system like this can be more challenging. But if you're doing sheets that are non-standard in any way, either because they have some kind of finishing element, or they're a non-standard size, a non-standard paperweight, something that the whole world is not running through their copiers, you can save quite significant sums on the cost of the paper. So these guys, with their unusual size sheets, where they're taking a larger sheet, having trim on there so they can break it into final size book pages, they were paying quite a big premium to get those kind of sheets prepared, by a converter for their press. So by doing the conversion themselves, taking those large rolls and breaking them into sheets themselves, you get the kind of comment that the president makes here, that no way would they ever go back to loading drawers again. They use this basically with the number of sheets you can get on a roll. You allow your inkjet or monochrome printer to operate for a full shift, 8 hours plus, before they might need to change that roll. And I sometimes talk about basically making a 50,000 sheet tray for your cut sheet printer. So TECNAU is a brief overview of TECNAU here as we're kind of winding up the presentation. TECNAU offers, as you can see, a whole line of automated paper handling equipment, cutters and stackers, band folders, rewinders, perforators, quality monitoring systems, splicing devices, etc. And we have a around the world capability here. You can see we've got over 8,000, it's probably well over 8,000 systems. We're probably getting up to 9,000 systems that we've installed on high-speed digital presses worldwide over the past 30 plus years. We've got manufacturing and engineering capability in 3 different locations. Helps us with unique capabilities in each location that are working together to provide new innovations for the marketplace. So exciting possibilities here from us, and hope that today you've been able to see some of the possibilities that might be available to you. If you want to follow up further on some of these TECNAU capabilities, you can certainly check out our website to learn who might be your right contact for some of these, to have further discussions and learn about some of these capabilities. You can see certainly our website has a distributor page and the sales network page that might help you. Hulleman, who's been with me this morning, is your best contact in Europe and Africa, and then in other parts of the world. You can see some of the other contacts here. So I think that's pretty much the presentation. Hulleman, I don't know if you had any closing comments as well.
No, thank you very much. I think it was very interesting to get, let's say, the customer perspective. And I think what we've seen here is that every customer does things slightly different. And that's also what makes the finishing world, I think, quite challenging and interesting to work with. So, no, very good. I'm wondering if there's any questions, maybe Morten, from your side, or?
Always.
I knew it.
I think it was a fantastic presentation, and as I said to my friends, and also to my wife is also my friend, but I said to her, the reason why I get so tired when I get home from these events is because you get so much information about things, some of the things you know, and some of the things you know just scratching the surface. The last time I met TECNAU in where I could touch and feel the products, that was actually at the ThinkSmart factory in Kyoto, and that was like, every time I see, I mean, your equipment looks so nice, and the output is stunning as well. So congratulate you on that, and congratulate you on your history. I think that is awesome. One of the things I am a bit curious about is we did an over the Skype with Heiko van Gaal from Canon Europe a couple of weeks ago, and he is actually going to present a presentation about inkjet tomorrow. And I was just wondering, because it seems that inkjet started more in the transactional business, and then it has moved into promotional, and it started to be colorful, and now we even have higher substrates, and we have higher quality, and all the machine vendors of the printers, they talk about moving into replacing maybe even offset machines in commercial print. And packaging is obviously also an important part of that. How do you see TECNAU in that relation?
Well, I can say you're probably right that it started in the transactional environment. Basically, also, if you look at many of the players today, especially also from the printer vendors, they were companies that already had a large installed base in the transactional environment, and inkjet just fitted very well. But I think from the beginning, we've seen that there was a huge opportunity also in the offset environment, and specifically looking at some examples here is the book or the publishing market. And I would say from the beginning, inkjet has also been very, very successful in that book environment, and we have quite a few customers around the world that are printing books on a daily basis with these high-speed inkjet devices. So if you look at where we see our future, definitely there's still a lot of potential there where offset can actually convert into digital. And from that perspective, we're only today doing a small bit compared to what's worldwide printed in offset. So I think there's a lot to do. And seeing the inkjet printing technology being developed as it has over the last couple of years, in combination with, let's say, all the finishing possibilities that there are now today, I think that world is opening up for us now quickly. So from that perspective, we're quite positive and quite optimistic for the coming few years.
I
hope you agree, Scott.
Our press partners are making life very interesting for us as their presses get more and more capable of producing these kind of graphic arts applications. Life gets more and more challenging for us finishing companies to be able to operate at the kind of ranges of applications, the kind of ranges of papers that these guys are producing these days.
Poor you guys, right?
Yeah.
Well, we always like a good challenge, though. But
absolutely.
But one of the reasons I was asking is because, I mean, obviously, I also heard that from Canon when I was visiting them in Boca Raton last year, is that I think it's a natural development that if you have inkjet devices, roll-based inkjet devices with transaction, with transprom or whatever, then it's like a natural development that when you invest in the newest equipment and you get like more capabilities and better quality, that you also move into other segments of the market. But I was also thinking a little bit about, let's say that you're a commercial printing company using traditional offset machines, and now you have started to look into this one. I think that a major challenge for some commercial printers who are not used to work with roll-based finishing is that should they choose a sheet printer in inkjet, or should they use a roll-based and get into like whole new binding things and all these kind of things? And of course, I understand that you have like devices that can make the rolls into sheets, and you can use legacy equipment. But how would it affect you if, let's say, that the majority of the commercial printers chooses cut sheet inkjet devices? How are you ready to serve that market?
Well, as Scott said in the beginning, a lot of our solutions today are focused around roll fed. And this is also a little bit, let's say, where we come from, where our heritage is.
Yes.
However, the last couple of years, we've developed quite a few systems now also for the cut sheet environment. And particularly also, you mentioned Heiko van Gaal, for sure is going to speak about the iX300 platform.
I guess we can't avoid that, right?
No, exactly. Well, together with them, we have developed an interesting range of finishing solution, either online to that device or in an airline situation. Coming back also to the discussion we had previously on online or offline. We offer both possibilities here. So we do see a growth in that segment. And let's say from a customer perspective, I can imagine if you're coming from a sheet offset environment, and if that's your first step into digital, a cut sheet inkjet device makes a lot of sense for them. because it doesn't change everything immediately.
Yeah.
And what you typically then see, once those customers grow or the applications or the volumes grow, a next natural step could be then going into roll-fed inkjet devices. So we luckily have solutions for both of them.
Okay. When Scott, when you also in your presentation talked about the inline versus offline finishing, I couldn't help think of that. That also extends to what we're talking about now, because I think that some of the commercial printers, they may choose a sheet fed based printer just because the changing paper to different substrates, different grammage and things like that is way faster in sheets than on roll. And but that is I think that when you have that when you have the entire value chain from both cut sheet to roll base, I think that you don't really care about that, because you have also the cutter that can make the sheets into the sheet based. So you have basically offerings for the entire range of printing companies, whether it's commercial or transactional, right?
Yeah, certainly. No, we've actually got along. So Hulleman is certainly right. I mean, our business is certainly focused more over the years on the continuous roll-fed side, but we have a long heritage of providing solutions for sheet-fed printers. I mean, for those of you, Morten, you might be a little young for this, but for those of your
I'm
listeners,
52. Come on.
those of your listeners who kind of were around in the industry, 35, years ago. We have products that ran with the Xerox Docutech, the Xerox 9790. Some of these really old, long-established sheet-fed inkjet printers that were been out there. We had roll feed products for those, so it's certainly a long heritage of our business.
Scott, this can become a very long conversation, because when I started in the printing industry, I used to work with the Docutechs, and I am actually 52 years old, so 30 years ago I was still working in print. So, but
you look young, Morten. You look good.
I'm so fat that my skin goes like this, so it's no worries. No, guys, it's good times ends faster than you sometimes anticipate. I really enjoyed your presentations. I hope you enjoyed being part of the show. We will of course send you some statistics afterwards, because I think it's been a very good show, and I appreciate your time. I appreciate that you got up so early, Scott. Thank you very much, and Hulleman, it was great to meet you too. I hope to see you soon in real life. That would be awesome.
Definitely. Thanks a lot, Morten, for setting up and giving us the platform. And you're doing a good job communicating to the market in these difficult times. So, it was a pleasure being here.
Thank you very much.
Very much.
Yeah, talk to you soon. Okay. Bye, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.